Hey, this is Chris checking in again from the lab, and this is the fourth and final video in a series of how to create a sentiment model, how to integrate a sentiment model into your FileMaker application. That was the second video. And then the third video was the one where I took the sentiment model and I created an add-on. So hopefully those of you that want to try out that free add-on on your own are watching this video. This is a video where I'm going to show you how to integrate it into your existing application and give you an example of how you might use this as well. So if you have already downloaded the sentiment model that I have offered up for free, you will have a zip file, and I put that here on my desktop so you can see what to do with it. So first of all, that is my sentiment model, and you'll notice that I have a folder structure here. This is, I start from the root of my library, go into application support, open up FileMaker, extensions, and then there's a folder called add-on modules. And when you unzip this folder, let's go ahead and move that into trash. You just drop that one right in there. And you'll know you have the right folder. If you have all of these files in it, you'll see I have a couple of custom icons and a little preview there. So once you have the sentiment model put into the right location, then all you need to do is restart FileMaker. So I don't have FileMaker open, but I just wanted to make sure you understand that you have to restart in order for it to be visible. So I'm going to open up FileMaker, introduce you to this file. I thought you would enjoy a little bit of context. So what this file is a bunch of home listings. These are, like rental homes, and they have a bunch of reviews. You see here that there's 275 reviews for just this one house right here. And what I want to do is I want to determine, in general, like home by home, I want to be able to see and do it programmatically and not manually, whether the reviews are overwhelmingly positive or negative or cut down the middle or whatever. So in order to do that, I have to tag every review either as they're written, just after they've written, or here I can do this retroactively as a batch. I need to tag all of these with a positive or negative value, and that's exactly what a sentiment model does. So in layout mode, you'll see that I've got a little field here that's for sentiment, and then I've attached a button that recognizes what values in that field and either gives me a green thumbs up if it's a positive review or a red thumbs down if it's not. I also have a chart over here that is telling me the breakdown of positive versus negative reviews. So that is our file, and it currently does not have any model information stored. You see there's no model table or any supported scripts. So that's where the add-on comes into play. So for those of you that are installing the add-on, you'll need to just find a context somewhere. It doesn't really matter what your context is. You just have to go into layout mode, and you go into the tab on the left-hand side that says add-ons. If you don't see this, you're going to have to toggle the pane that has fields, objects, and add-ons in it. And you likely won't see any add-ons, or if you're like me, if you've already installed one of the add-ons, you'll see them there. But either way, you hit the plus button on the bottom, and you'll scroll down below the JavaScript add-ons, past the table add-ons, down to, I guess we would call these custom. And you'll select it, hit the choose button, and actually at this point, pretty much everything's installed. So I'm going to show you one last step, but I thought it would be kind of interesting to show you that a new layout has been created. So there's my model layout. You'll also notice that the scripts that are required for this, so a whole folder full of scripts, I'm going to show you how to configure those in a second. Those have already been installed. And if we go into Manage Database, you'll also see that the model table, which that layout is based off of, has been created. One record has been created, and that contains the sentiment model. So you're all ready to go to integrate this into your own solution. So let's take a look at a layout here. So now if you actually navigate to the layout that was installed as part of the add-on, then you can grab the add-on in layout mode and drag it onto the layout. Now you've got all the fields available. You can just hit save, and you can see these are the fields. They're all editable. This is the actual .ml model file that was created in the previous couple movies. You can go back to movie number 1 and even movie number 2 if you want to see how that was created in CreateML. And if you're a Mac user, you'll be able to integrate this into your application and run it. Now, I just want to, you'll hear me talk about this in previous videos, but just to say it here again, it doesn't mean that if you only have one Mac that none of your FileMaker application can't benefit from this, if you're the administrator, you can run the scripts that I'm about to show you and store the results of a machine learning model into an editable field, and then all of your non-Mac users can use it. So this is by no means a restriction that all your users need to be Macs. Just if you're the administrator, who I would assume you would be if you're watching this, you just need to be on a Mac in order for the model to run. The technique that I used was a 1 or a 0. 1 if the model is loaded, 0 if it's not. There's other methodologies that you could use to accomplish that. But what we want to do at this point is go into the script workspace so I can show you how to update a couple of your scripts. First of all, the thing that you're going to want to do is attach this unload model to your file options. And if you go under script triggers, if you already have an on last window closed script that's running, which I do, you're going to want to add a line to that and say perform script, or you could just, copy the script steps that were in this script, but this is probably the easiest way to do it. So, we'll go into name, and you'll see this down here in the folder. This is the unload model, also the one that I said run on file close. So this is all set up to clear these values out every time that you close your file. The other approach to this, that means you wouldn't have to attach this to the closing script, essentially, is to use the get model attributes function. If you want to use that instead, I showed you the syntax for how to do it. Get the model function. It tells you what model is running, and if that's the same model that you're on, that you happen to be on the record context, then you know that it's running. If you try to run that model and it gives you a question mark, that means no models are running. So that's all you need to do for closing that out. Essentially, when I load the model, I'm turning a 0 into a 1, and that's just making sure that you're turning that 1 into a 0 so that the next session is not confused. So in this case, the script for run review sentiment is really the same one for loop run review sentiment. So I'm going to show you how to configure the loop one, and give you the steps that you need to do to it's really the same steps that you would do on the run review sentiment. So first of all, notice this up here, the first variable, what it's doing, it's really kind of set up for when you have multiple different models. So you have a model table, you can create a new record and add a whole new model in there if you'd like to. So kind of moving forward, preparing you for that. What I'm doing is I'm setting a variable to model, and if the script parameter that ran the script, so like if there was you attach this to a button on a layout somewhere, make sure that you give it the script parameter of sentiment. Right now, if it doesn't have any script parameters, it's just going to insert sentiment. So if you got a bunch of models, this might be something that you change a little bit later, maybe do some error trapping or something like that. But this will at least guarantee that it will run if you forget to add the script parameter of the word sentiment, like you see there. So after that, you scroll down a little bit and you'll notice that essentially what I'm doing is I'm popping up a new window and performing a find looking for a model that's named after this variable. So we're looking for the sentiment model, which you will have when you install the add-on, and we're determining whether or not it's loaded. If it's got a 0 in the model loaded field, it'll say model not loaded. It'll pop up to the user and then it'll load it. And when it loads it, you can actually look at the toggle model script step to see how that loading happens. But after it's loaded, then we set the model loaded field to a true value, which is 1, and that's what we're clearing out when we close. So after that, we will go down to this section here, and you'll notice that we've got this field missing, and that was on purpose. If you see what the fields are here, you'll notice that the instructions indicate are make sure that the field that you're going to analyze actually has a value in it. So I'm going to map that to my new field because and you'll have a field whatever you're doing with your sentiment model, but in my case I've got a table full of reviews and I want to analyze the contents of the comments field. So I got to make sure that that has a value first, otherwise the script will stop, and it probably makes sense to show the user, hey, this is empty, and do a little bit more error trapping there. And then this is really where it all pays off, because ultimately what a machine learning model is doing is just providing, really high level calculation functions for your application. And then it's taking the result of those and storing it into a field. So I'm going to use a set field. And this is really important, make sure that the target field is, and you see here in reviews, I've created a field that's going to store the sentiment result. So make sure that you pick the target field, and then you have a second thing you need to do. Go into calculate a result, and you'll see that the instruction here says replace the layout and the field name that contains the text that you want to evaluate. So the target field was where I'm going to put the results of that evaluation, but this is going to be that same field that we checked to make sure it wasn't empty earlier. This is in the reviews field and comments. So now it's all ready to go. And, honestly, I would probably do a little bit of error checking down here, maybe add a commit. These scripts are wide open. You can do whatever you want. Maybe add a commit down here and some error trapping up in the area where you're checking whether or not it's empty. All of that is up to you. You can do all of this in your own version of the file. But now we've got the loop version of the script ready. So what I'm going to do is go back into the file and show you the layout that I've got here. So this home, or this listing, has 275 records. So I'm going to create a found set of those. So I have 275 of these records. And if you go into layout mode, or if I go into layout mode, you'll see that I've created a popover with a little button bar. And I've got this button that you see here with nothing added to it. So I'm going to go in here and say perform script. And I'm going to choose the loop. You could just do the single record at a time, but I'm going to choose loop. And if you remember, you would want to add a script parameter. So I'm going to say sentiment and pass that over as a parameter. So now if I go into browse mode, of course, I've got 275 records. Let's go ahead and run this. So I'm going to select this. And by the way, a little preview, stay tuned for upcoming series of movies on a summary model, which will populate this field and the keywords. Anyways, just a little tease. So I'm going to hit this button and run the script. And it tells me, hey, this model isn't loaded. And I can see that it's not loaded because it's got a 0 there. And there's a script step that is going to load the model, referencing the file that's stored inside the model file container field. So I'm going to load it. And now that it's loaded, it can be used. So in a blink of an eye, you'll notice that all 275 records have been evaluated as either positive or negative. You can kind of see, a little bit of what maybe some of the triggers of positive and negative were. But the precision on this, if you look at the very first video in this series, the precision on this was in the mid to high 90s. So I'm really confident that this model is going to run properly. So now when I go back into listing details, let's look at how we've used it. So you see here, I've got the positive or negative for the this is actually just a summary of the overall review that was analyzed, and this was analyzed as positive. So we have the little green thumbs up, and then you'll see here that all of the reviews, we see that 95% of them were positive and only 4% were negative. So this is really, what I wanted to show you was a real life way that you could integrate these sentiment models into your own application. But more importantly, you now have access to this sentiment model. You can look in the notes on this video or previously in the post and install it into your own applications. I look forward to hearing from you in the comments about all the cool things you were able to do with this free sentiment model add-on that was provided. I really appreciate your attention, and thanks for joining me in the lab today in the final video in the series of creating and integrating a sentiment machine learning model into FileMaker.